Senator Pia Cayetano join us from the Philippines. She has a track record for winning the toughest fights. For nearly 2 decades, she's led the passage of landmark laws on healthcare, education, and measures to support economic growth. And she is a staunch health advocate. She worked for the enactment of the sin tax reform law to raise additional revenues for healthcare while curbing harmful vices, especially among youth. She chairs the Senate Committee on Sustainable Development Goals, Innovation, and Futures Thinking in the 19th Congress. Senator Pia also chairs the Asia and Pacific Regional Chapter of UNITE, a global network of parliamentarians committed to ending infectious disease. She's an attorney, economist, triathlete, and mother. So, Senator, over to you. And you can present here if you're more comfortable from seated. Perfect, please do.
Hello and good afternoon to everyone. It is my pleasure to share the Philippine story on the fight against tobacco. I could stand here all day. I promise you, I'm usually very worried that people will fall asleep, but with this story, I could stand here for 3 hours and you would not fall asleep. So the challenge will really be on how I can present this to you in a few minutes. I'm going to try to go chronologically just so that you have an understanding of the amount of time that has passed from the time I started working on this till today. But bear with me as I insert certain aspects of the journey as I feel it's relevant despite it being out of the timeline that I'm presenting. So I became a senator in 2004, and my seatmate was the former Secretary of Health who launched this campaign called Yossi Kadire. It means smoking is disgusting. So he was my seatmate and mentor. He was a doctor, and he told me to chair the Committee on Health and that he would guide me, and he truly was a good mentor for many years. So sometime in 2008 was my first start with tobacco control, and that is when I filed a bill on graphic health warning. And so the first lesson of this measure was perseverance, because it passed 6 years later, and I do have photos, which I hope will be shown in a bit. You'll see the pictures of the kids who were part of the advocacy group that were rallying for graphic warnings, and you'll see that from kids they became teenagers over the 6 years that passed. But we did pass that law. And that was in 2008. And then in 2008, and then it passed in 2014. But in 2009, I passed another measure, which was strengthening our FDA. And the goal here was to cover all products that affect health. That is the definition of the jurisdiction of FDA, all products that affect health. But then the tobacco group filed a case restraining FDA to act to control them, because they say that they're not covered by FDA. They are not a product that affects health. So let's digest that for a moment. Tobacco products do not affect health. Therefore, they're not covered by FDA. So that was their argument. Let me just leave you with that. So that's how it was for the next decade or so. That case was pending in the Supreme Court, and I filed as a petitioner as an intervener, because that was my law. So I had standing to file as an intervener in that case. And then in 2012, this was my first sin tax law. And a little bit of history: the chairman of the Committee of Ways and Means, the Taxation Committee, filed a committee report with an extremely watered down tax provisions, very watered down. And this was just at the beginning of the Twitter age. So there was still not really a very strong social media presence. But the advocacy groups, the NGOs were very strong, and they actually got this chairman to resign. He resigned, and our Senate President had previously, I think, chaired the Committee on Ways and Means or Committee on Finance, but he ended up handling this putting forward a new committee report that had stronger taxation measures, and he asked me to participate by way of the health measures within that tax measure. So that was my first experience with sin tax in 2012. And this sin tax law, I am happy to report, currently in the last collection in 2022, $2 billion is what we are collecting from sin tax. $2 billion. And this goes directly towards our universal health care and also health facilities. And I don't have time, but if anyone's interested, I can tell you all the health work that we have been able to do with this kind of funding. Our universal health care coverage used to be almost nothing. And now, as a public servant, it's very rewarding. I get messages, I bump into people who say that their mother, their father, their grandfather, their brother has been able to have some kind of health care. It's not perfect, it's far from perfect, but we've come a long way. So that was 2012. In 2020, we then decided to put forward a new tax measure, and this time I was the chairman of the Committee on Ways and Means. And so we had a debate if we will ban or if we will tax the new products, which are the e-cigarettes, the vapes, and the heated tobacco. And it was decided that we will tax. Of course, technically, not really my boss, but of course the Department of Finance would rather tax than to ban. And considering that we are a country of 7,000 islands, there is always a lot of contrabands coming in and out, so the decision was to tax. So we taxed. And at that time, my brother was the Speaker of the House of Representatives. I was a senator. And with his support, we were able to come up with very good tax rates and 3 important health provisions to protect particularly the youth against the ills of this sin product. So we made the age of access to vapes and e-cigs to 21 years of age. We put the FDA put tobacco under the jurisdiction of FDA, and we said no flavors except original and menthol. And this passed. It's the first time that such a strong tobacco measure passed in Congress, and especially in the House, and that was because, with all due respect, I'm biased, of course, he's my brother, but it would not have happened if there was not a Speaker of the House who would let it happen. Side story, the members of the House in the bicameral would be calling and saying, "You're in the Philippines, the term of endearment for older sister is ate," and they're like, "Your ate is giving us a hard time." But he told them that you need to do what is right. We need to look parents in the eyes and tell them we did what was right for your children. So we taxed them and we put these protective measures. So that was 2020. Barely a year later, my brother was no longer Speaker of the House, and they filed a new bill reversing all of these gains. And this is one of the most difficult times of my career because I was the sole oppositor in the Senate. I did have a few colleagues who fought with me on a couple of issues. I have to acknowledge that. But in the end, I was fighting on my own on this measure to ensure that we retain the 21-year age, the age of access, the flavor, the limitation of flavor in the jurisdiction. I lost on all. So we now have a law that lowered it to the age of 18. There's a new provision there that basically allows all flavors, although there's a catch-all that says it should not be attractive to children. So no cartoon characters, no reference to ice cream flavor, something like that. But otherwise, it's still open-ended compared to what it was. Okay, some good news. Around this time, the Supreme Court finally made a decision that the jurisdiction of the FDA includes tobacco. So that was a win after 10 years. And as we speak, a motion for reconsideration is ongoing in the Supreme Court because, of course, the tobacco lobby will keep on fighting to remove their jurisdiction. But that is where we are today, and I continue to fight for this because the jurisdiction is now with the Department of Trade, and I have no idea how the Department of Trade is supposed to ensure the health of people, but I am thankful that at least I am seeing them working with our Department of Health and our FDA. So a few months ago, I filed a resolution, had a hearing on the proliferation of vape products that were attractive to children. They were literally cartoon packaging, very colorful ice cream, ice cream flavors as are not allowed, and the DTI did work on seizing these products. So I want to be hopeful. I hope that we can continue to do the work we're doing. I thank you for this opportunity to be at this forum and to share the experiences we've had, because I do believe that with perseverance, if we keep on fighting, the day will come that we will be able to have a more secure place for children and to be able to use the power of taxation for good, which it has done. But when I was asked earlier, is it enough? I said, well, not if we don't put regulatory measures to also ensure limited use, especially for children. So I will leave it at that for now and open to questions later. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. We're gonna come back to the Philippines and hear more about your journey and some of the challenges you face and lessons learned for other countries who are looking to do this. But first, we're gonna go to Colombia, which is an example of an incredible success story. And for that, we have Andrea Rodriguez with FIAN FIAN Colombia, which is a civil society organization that advocates for the right to food and nutrition. And in her role with FIAN, she coordinates advocacy on a range of food and nutrition policies, including front-of-pack warning labels, taxation on sugar-sweetened beverages and ultra-processed products, and the regulation of these ultra-processed products in school food environments. Andrea is going to speak in Spanish, and we will have translation simultaneously, or almost simultaneously, concurrently.
Muy buenas tardes para todos y todas. Es un gusto estar hoy en este importante espacio. Gracias, Lucy, a todo el Advocacy Incubator por la invitación y a las personas también que nos acompañan en el panel.
Good day to all. It's a pleasure for me to be here amongst you. First of all, thank you, Lucy. Thank you very much. And thank Global Health Advocacy Incubator for the invitation to this important event.
Efectivamente, Lucy, como lo has dicho, la sociedad civil en Colombia logró la aprobación de 2 impuestos. El primero a las bebidas ultraprocesadas azucaradas y el segundo a los comestibles ultraprocesados.
Indeed, Lucy, as you said, in Colombia, civil society succeeded in getting 2 taxes approved. The first to ultra-processed sugar beverages and the second to ultra-processed eatables.
Los 2 impuestos son progresivos a una tasa del 20% en el año 2025, con un punto de partida desde el año 2023 hasta el año 2025.
Both are progressive at a rate of 20% in the year 2025, with a starting point of the year 2023 to the year 2025.
El primero es un impuesto de tipo específico que se impone a las bebidas azucaradas de acuerdo a su contenido en gramos de azúcar por cada 100 mililitros.
The first is a specific tax imposed on sugar-sweetened beverages according to their content in grams of sugar per 100 milliliters.
Y el segundo es un impuesto ad valorem que se impone por cada 100 gramos a todos los productos comestibles ultraprocesados.
And the second is an ad valorem tax imposed per 100 grams on all ultra-processed food products.
Y algo muy importante, este último impuesto a los productos comestibles ultraprocesados toma como referencia los valores de los nutrientes críticos establecidos en la ley de etiquetado aprobado en Colombia en el año 2021, que toma en cuenta el perfil de nutrientes de la OPS.
And something very important to mention is that these are take into consideration the critical nutrients established in the nutritional labeling law tested in Colombia in 2021, which are those approved by the PAHO nutrient profile.
Ley que también fue una conquista de la sociedad civil, la ley de etiquetado nutricional.
This law was also achieved thanks to the work of the civil society. This is a labeling law.
Algo también muy importante que queremos compartirles es que logramos posicionar el concepto de ultraprocesamiento en la agenda pública nacional.
Another important thing that we wish to share with you is that we were able to position the concept of ultra-processing in the national public agenda.
Pudimos incluir en la ley de reforma tributaria de nuestro país la definición de ultraprocesamiento y esta va más allá del nutriente crítico. Se concentra en el conjunto del ultraprocesamiento.
We were able to include in the tax reform law of our country a definition of ultra-processing that goes beyond the critical nutrient and focuses on ultra-processing as a whole.
Y esto ha sido muy importante porque ha llevado a que, por ejemplo, tomadores de decisión, medios de comunicación, hablen de ultraprocesados, hablen del ultraprocesamiento y hagan una distinción entre estos y los alimentos.
And this has been very important since now the media and the decision makers are talking about ultra-processed and not food only when referring to ultra-processed edible products.
Y consideramos que este es un cambio también muy importante en nuestro país frente a las narrativas alrededor de lo que es un alimento y lo que es un producto comestible o bebible ultraprocesado.
And we believe that this is a very important change in our country regarding the narrative of what it's an eatable product or an ultra-processed product.
Estas conquistas en Colombia han sido posibles gracias a la creación de alianzas, a la creación de coaliciones desde la sociedad civil.
These achievements in Colombia have been possible thanks to the creation of alliances and coalitions from civil society.
Coaliciones que han llevado durante años un trabajo arduo de incidencia política y que son organizaciones que comparten y se fortalecen a partir de sus propias habilidades y experticias y lo que ha llevado a unirnos en función de lograr estos impuestos.
These are coalitions that have been doing hard advocacy work for several years with organizations that complement and strengthen each other based on their skills and expertise, which has allowed us to join forces in various ways.
Esto nos ha permitido sumar esfuerzos en varios sentidos. Primero, asesorando a tomadores de decisión en los niveles legislativo y del gobierno y sus equipos de trabajo.
This, as I mentioned before, has allowed us to join forces in several ways, the first of which is advise decision makers at a legislative and governmental levels and their technical work teams.
Segundo, lograr fuertes lazos de trabajo con la academia libre de conflictos de interés, contando con expertos y expertas que nos apoyaron en el diseño técnico de los impuestos basados en la evidencia científica.
The second is we've achieved strong working ties with the academia free of conflict of interest, with experts who supported the technical design of taxes based on scientific evidence.
Tercero, generar movilización de la opinión pública, organizaciones sociales, comunidades, líderes y lideresas, medios de comunicación en función de defender y exigir la necesidad de los impuestos saludables en Colombia.
Number three, we've generated mobilization of public opinion, social and community organizations, leaders, and the media in order to advocate and demand the need for healthy taxes in the country, thus amplifying the voices and building consensus in the social basis.
Y logramos además nuestra participación como organizaciones de la sociedad civil en espacios de debate público y toma de decisión frente a la aprobación de los impuestos saludables.
We also achieved our participation in the spaces of public debate and decision-making regarding the approval of health taxes.
Estos triunfos no han sido fáciles de alcanzar. Tuvieron que pasar alrededor de 7 años y 3 intentos para que en el marco de las reformas tributarias de los años 2016, 2019 y 2021 se lograra la aprobación de los impuestos saludables, algo que finalmente conquistamos en el año 2022.
But these triumphs have not been easy to achieve. It took 7 years and 3 attempts to achieve them within the framework of the tax reforms in the years 2016, 2019, and 2021. The approval of health taxes, something this was something that was finally achieved in 2022.
Tuvimos una fuerte oposición de la industria de ultraprocesados, medios de comunicación y gremios, así como de opositores en el gobierno y en el Congreso, así como la perjudicial acción del lobby de las grandes industrias.
We had a strong opposition from the ultra-processed food industry, the media, and even unions, as well as opposition from the government and Congress. We also had a damaging action on behalf of the lobbyists of large industries.
Esto hizo que en ocasiones, por ejemplo, estos actores generaran pánico económico al decir que las industrias saldrían del país si se aprobaban los impuestos saludables, todo con el fin de deslegitimar y atacar la sociedad civil.
This meant at times, for example, that these actors generated economic panic by saying that the industries would leave the country if the health taxes were approved, all with the purpose of delegitimizing and attacking civil society.
Para terminar, como sociedad civil en Colombia tenemos unos grandes desafíos. El primero es acompañar el proceso de implementación y monitoreo de nuestros impuestos, protegerlos y mejorarlos, dado que atravesamos por 3 demandas en contra de nuestros impuestos, instauradas en la Corte Constitucional en Colombia.
Now in Colombia, as a civil society, we have 3 great challenges ahead of us. The first one is to accompany the process of implementation and monitoring of our taxes and protect and improve them, given that we are going through 3 lawsuits against them that were so far unsuccessful in the Constitutional Court.
Lo segundo es continuar con la vigilancia que desde la sociedad civil hacemos a los recursos públicos por parte de los gobiernos. Es decir, es muy importante saber en qué se invierten estos recursos que se recaudan con los impuestos. Tenemos que lograr que sean invertidos en mejorar la calidad de vida de las personas, mayores inversiones en sistema de suministro de agua, fortalecer la producción local de alimentos y avanzar en mejores condiciones de salud.
Number 2 is to continue with the surveillance that, from the civil society point of view, we do to the use of public resources by the government. In other words, it is very important to know how these resources are collected through our taxes and where they are invested. We also have to ensure that these resources are invested to improve people's quality of life, greater investment in drinking water supply systems, strengthen local food production, and make progress in improving people's health conditions.
Además, es muy importante lograr que no se desvíen, que no se pierdan estos recursos, algo que pasa mucho en países como el nuestro, como Colombia, y por esto es fundamental la sostenibilidad de la medida.
Moreover, it is important to ensure that these resources are not diverted or lost, which is something that unfortunately happens a lot in countries such as mine, Colombia, which is fundamental for the sustainability of this measure.
Por último, y algo que es muy importante para nosotros como sociedad civil en Colombia, y es lograr que se fortalezcan las economías campesinas, la producción de alimentos reales provenientes de la agricultura familiar, comunitaria, étnica y popular, y mantener también nuestra incidencia como organizaciones de la sociedad civil en la garantía del derecho humano a la alimentación y nutrición adecuadas y en la soberanía alimentaria, especialmente en los niños, niñas y adolescentes. Muchísimas gracias.
Lastly, we need to continue working to ensure that in Colombia, we need to strengthen, above all, something that is very important for us, which is peasant economies, the production of real food from family, community, ethnic, and popular agriculture, to maintain our advocacy organizations so that Colombia can become more equitable and a sustainable country, above all, guaranteeing the human right to food, the right to food sovereignties, and food sovereignty, especially in the case of children. Thank you very much for your attention.